G'day guys, Solid here. Welcome back to Adventure News special flash update. KTM have just been caught out testing a 690 rally based heavily off the Enduro R. Super exciting news, but what exactly is different with this rally compared to the 690 Enduro R? And more to the point, why has it taken KTM so damn long to actually make one of these bikes? Let's get into it. Thankfully, to my eye and what most media outlets are reporting, is this basically looks like a rally kit that's bolted onto the 690 Enduro R. So there's no fundamental differences to the 690 Enduro R, which is a good thing in my opinion, because most people, myself included, all I wanted out of the 690 Enduro R was some tanks up the front for extra fuel range and a rally fairing. That was basically all KTM have needed to do for the past decade or so. Now what we can see from the Spied photos is that it looks like two separate tanks up front. And that is very familiar for most people that have already modified their 690 Enduro Rs. I had a mate with a 690 Enduro R. He went to the aftermarket and got two auxiliary tanks stuck to the front. Very nice setup. So it looks like KTM have taken straight out of the aftermarket playbook, and you've got two separate tanks up front. They don't look too substantial, so my guess is each side could probably hold 5 to 7.5 litres. I'll do the gallons for those people stuck in the imperial system in the caption below. So I think it's reasonable to assume that we've got about 10 to maybe 13 to 15 litres up front, effectively doubling what's at the rear, which I think will be really good because the 690 Enduro R already had a decently sized tank for a dual sport, but for the rally application where you're going to be doing more of the longer trips, more of the super lightweight adventure riding into really hardcore places, this effective doubling of the tank capacity is going to be much welcome for a lot of people. The other major difference, of course, is that rally fairing, which is going to be really good at keeping the wind and the elements off you, keep you comfortable and reduce fatigue on those long multi-day, multi-week, or maybe even round the world trips. We can also see a little top rack at the back as well. It's holding the little telemetry box. Who knows whether that will make it to the production version, but it will be nice if this gets kitted straight out of the box with a little adventure top rack. It looks like you're getting a little extra heat shielding down on the exhaust there as well, where it passes the petrol tank. But other than that, to my eye, I'm really failing to see any major differences. I doubt there'll be any changes to the engine, which is a good thing. It makes plenty of power. At this point, KTM have really honed in and perfected that engine. They've had some teething issues in the past, but I think at this point, most of that is behind them. This single cylinder is really a really great and very well performing dual sport engine. Of course, we've got the same WP suspension. That again is a good thing. The KTM 690 Enduro R's suspension was pretty decent straight out of the box with a fair amount of adjustability. Definitely don't think that's any cause for complaint. So I think KTM have done the smart thing here, and really they haven't changed what isn't broken. The 690 Enduro R is a really good package and people love it for a reason. So I think it was smart for them not to change anything other than what they had to. I think the other thing you're going to have to be realistic about is the weight. This certainly isn't going to be as light as the 690 Enduro R, which I believe wet weight is about 158 kilos. Now, if we go by the simple math of just calling the two front tanks that it's got 5 litres each, with them fully fueled, that roughly will add 10 kilos to the bike. So we're going from 158 to 168 kilograms straight away. Then you've got to consider that little top rack, as well as the fairing and the windscreen that we've got there with the rally tower. That is going to add some additional weight as well. So I think this will probably be, strangely, somewhere around the same weight as the 390 Adventure. So I think this will be mid to low 170 kilograms, which I still think is really, really good. For what you're getting, remember this makes 74 horsepower and will have really good range with all those tanks on it. I think 170 odd kilos is still quite manageable for its purpose. And realistically, it's the best option we're gonna have on the market, at least weight-wise. When you compare the capability, try and think of another bike with a fairing, a windscreen, and the range that this will potentially have with its power characteristics and the suspension package. There really isn't anything. The Tenere is over 200 kilos. The CF Moto 450 MT, as great as it is significantly heavier, doesn't have as capable suspension and makes nearly half the power. The same goes for the bike behind me. If they keep this bike in the mid 170s or even lower than that, I think it will be a win. If they go north of the high 170 kilos, I think this will be a little bit of a question mark for me. That's just because I'm a bit of a weight weenie when it comes to the more capable bikes off-road. A bike like this that has the potential capability that it has, I think keeping the weight down is far more of a priority. But I'd love to know your thoughts.
Start it up.
So people are probably going to say at this point, but Solid, why do KTM even need to do this? You can get the Rally replica, and I agree with you, you can get that straight from the factory from KTM, but you'd probably have to sell most of your vital organs to afford one of the things. And even on top of that, it's not really road registerable to the extent where it can be a daily rider. It really is just a racing bike. And as amazing as it is, it's completely useless to 90% of riders. That is the average Joes who just want a decent rally bike that they can handle and can afford. The other argument might be, well, Solid, there's plenty on the aftermarket, and absolutely there is. My mate had a 690 Enduro R, as I talked about. He did the rally bike thing with it, and it was a fantastic bike. You can go to the accessory market. Rally Raid has some great products. There's plenty of other outlets that allow you to turn the 690 Enduro into a rally bike. But there's something to be said about the ease and security of just being able to walk into the dealership and get exactly what you need straight out of the box. It's all OEM, so you can go to the dealer to get replacement parts. It's also easier on insurance. Everything fits properly and seamlessly, and it really removes the faff of having to go through the accessory market. The big question for me will be price. The 690 Enduro R is already an incredibly expensive dual sport here in Australia, and I don't expect this 690 Rally to be cheaper than the Enduro, given it's got even more components on it. I don't expect it to be too much more expensive, but I think we could possibly see this north of 20,000 Australian dollars. And when you think about the capability and what this bike offers, I don't think that's too bad of a deal. Certainly not a bike I could currently afford myself in this cost of living crisis, but for those people that really need a rally bike and want something more capable than a Tenere 700, but also need more power than what the 300 Rally offers from Honda, this is going to be the perfect bike for a lot of people, and it's going to get a lot of people excited. Hell, if I had the money, this would be a bike that I'd be very, very interested in. The other big theory is, given that this bike looks pretty polished and fairly far along in its development process, is that we could see this bike being revealed at the end of the year at the big motorcycle shows. Boy, does time go fast, but it could be a real possibility and really exciting if that's to be the case. So I'm crossing my fingers, hoping to see this bike at ICMA at the end of this year. When we look back at the history of the adventure and the dual sport world, really they've just made what they've had to sell lots of bikes and left it to the accessory market to really keep us happy. And every man's rally bike has only really reached the consciousness of the big manufacturers in recent years. But in recent times, they've realized, hey, actually, consumers actually want a really dirt capable rally bike, because what a rally bike offers that no other motorcycle can offer is the performance of a dual sport off-road with close to the comfort of an adventure bike out on the open road. It really is that sweet spot for a lot of us of a true 50-50. And that's a special kind of motorcycle that can cover so much of a spectrum of riding, especially when we want our money to go as far as we can. You could look at this bike as potentially being quite expensive, but when you think about how versatile it is, you could argue, at least to your partner, to sell them on the idea, is that this bike really is two bikes in one. And I think that is the appeal for so many people. Finally, KTM are fulfilling that need. My only worry is that KTM are in the worst financial state they've been in a very, very long time. Hopefully they pull out of this nosedive. I think that's a big reason why they've decided on this bike as well. Let's try and make bikes that people have been actually asking for and meet the market's needs, because that's the only way they're going to claw out of this tailspin, is by making bikes that people want. And this is definitely one of them, in my opinion. I think it's also timing of the market as well. It's why the bike behind me and the CF Moto 450 MT are making so many waves in the adventure bike world, because they're so affordable yet pretty much as capable off-road as any of the bigger boys, and more manageable because of their lower weight and their lower engine capacity. KTM have done the smart move of realizing that now is the time if they're going to do it. People are focused on smaller size adventure and rally motorcycles, so right now is the time to do it, and right now is the time for them to do it as well, because if they need a bike to do well, it's right now. I'd love to know your thoughts. Is it too little too late for you? Have you already moved on, got your perfect bike, and you're not going to worry about this 690 rally? Or is this exactly the bike you've been hoping for and it's answered your prayers? I'd love to know what you think about the 690 rally, what you've spotted, because I can't see everything with my eyes. So if you've spotted something I've missed, please chuck it down in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, don't forget to stay shiny side up, and I'll see you in the next one.